He was just a single dad, a quiet veteran walking into a boot camp full of cocky recruits. 17 young soldiers laughed at him, mocked his age, and ridiculed the way he carried himself. But when the female commander noticed the tattoo on his arm, the room fell silent, and everything changed. Before I share this powerful story, if you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button and show some love to them right now. The first day of boot camp was always brutal, but for Daniel Hayes, it was more than just a test of endurance, it was a test of dignity. At 41 years old, he wasn't like the other recruits. While most of them were fresh out of high school or barely into their 20s, Daniel had already lived 2 lives. First as a decorated Army Ranger who had returned home from overseas with scars on his body and deeper ones in his heart, and second as a single father raising his little daughter after his wife walked out. Joining boot camp again wasn't about proving anything to himself. It was about securing a better future for his child, giving her stability, and showing her that you never stop fighting for the people you love. But to the 17 recruits who stood in line beside him, Daniel was nothing but a joke. They whispered under their breath, smirked at the gray in his stubble, and even made mocking comments about him being a washed-up old man. Their laughter grew louder during push-ups, when Daniel's slower pace seemed to confirm their assumptions. What they didn't realize was that every bead of sweat falling from his forehead wasn't just from exertion, it was from the crushing weight of responsibility that only he carried. By mid-morning, the teasing had escalated. One tall recruit named Mason clapped his hands dramatically and shouted, "Hey Grandpa, need me to call your granddaughter to cheer you on?" The others roared with laughter. Daniel said nothing. He simply tightened his jaw and pushed through his sit-ups, his mind focused on his daughter's smile and the promise he made to her, "Daddy will make things better." When Commander Elena Ramirez stepped onto the training field, silence swept across the group. Ramirez was known throughout the force for her no-nonsense leadership and her eye for talent. She paced the line of recruits with the sharpness of a hawk, her boots striking the ground in crisp rhythm. Her eyes scanned each soldier, measuring their posture, discipline, and readiness. But when she reached Daniel, she paused. Her gaze lingered not on his weathered face or tired arms, but on the tattoo barely visible beneath his sleeve. It was the unmistakable mark of the 75th Ranger Regiment, inked with a symbol only true combat veterans carried. Ramirez's expression shifted from stern observation to something more profound. She raised her voice, commanding all 17 recruits to line up shoulder to shoulder. "You think this man is weak," she barked, pointing to Daniel. "You laugh at him because he's older, because he doesn't sprint like you. Let me tell you something, you're standing next to someone who has already walked through hell while you were still sitting in classrooms." The recruits exchanged uneasy glances, their bravado fading quickly. Ramirez continued, her voice sharp but heavy with respect. "This tattoo isn't decoration. It means he's bled for this country, lost brothers in battle, and survived missions most of you couldn't even imagine. While you laugh at him, you forget that men like him are the reason you get to laugh at all." The field was silent. Even Mason, who had been the loudest critic, lowered his head. Daniel stood there, still breathing heavily, but this time he wasn't the one under pressure, the others were. Then came the twist that none of the recruits expected. Ramirez turned back to Daniel and said, "Sergeant Hayes, step forward." The recruits' jaws dropped. They had no idea the man they mocked had once held rank, commanding soldiers in life-or-death situations. Daniel hesitated, uncomfortable with the attention, but Ramirez wouldn't let him shy away. She ordered him to demonstrate combat drills. Within minutes, the same man they had ridiculed moved with precision and skill far beyond what they had imagined. His strikes were sharp, his movements fluid, his endurance steady despite his age. The laughter that once echoed across the training field was replaced with awe. But Ramirez wasn't finished. She addressed the recruits once more, her tone even sharper. "You see, respect isn't about who's the youngest or the fastest. It's about sacrifice, resilience, and courage. This man is here not for glory, not for pride, but for his family. If any of you think you're tougher than that, prove it, not with your mouths, but with your actions. From that day forward, everything shifted. The same 17 recruits who had mocked Daniel now sought his guidance. They asked him questions, listened to his advice, and followed his example. Even Mason, the loudest voice of ridicule, approached him privately one evening. With sincerity in his eyes, he admitted, "I didn't know. I'm sorry. I hope one day I can be half the soldier you are." Daniel simply nodded, not out of pride, but humility. Yet the most powerful moment came weeks later during a grueling overnight exercise. The recruits were exhausted, trudging through mud with packs that felt like anchors. Some began to falter, and doubt spread quickly among the younger men. Daniel, though weary himself, pushed forward and spoke with the quiet authority of someone who had been there before. "Don't quit. Not here. Not tonight. If I can keep moving for my daughter, you can keep moving for yourselves." His words lit a fire in them, and together they completed the mission. When graduation day arrived, Commander Ramirez delivered a speech in front of the entire unit. She praised the recruits for their resilience, but singled out Daniel as a living example of what true strength looked like. "Strength isn't in your youth," she declared. "It's in your heart, your purpose, and your ability to rise no matter how many times you've been knocked down. And Sergeant Hayes has shown us all what that means." As Daniel stood tall in his uniform, his daughter watching proudly from the crowd, the very recruits who had once laughed at him stood beside him, not as mockers, but as brothers. They had entered boot camp with arrogance, but they left with respect, forged by the lesson one single dad veteran had unknowingly taught them, that courage is timeless. And that's how 17 young soldiers learned a life-changing lesson from a single dad veteran who refused to quit. Now I want to hear from you. Where in the country are you watching this story from? Drop your state in the comments below.